So there's an opportunity here with the Palestinians because they've been rising up against Hamas, which is so rare. And they really should take advantage of this because, and I want to read this, it's not very long, this article, because they don't, so let me just read it. It says Gazans must rise up and demand that Hamas be expelled, according to Israeli Defense Minister Katz, who called for civilian defiance while warning that Hamas's leadership is willing to burn half of Gaza to maintain power. Speaking Wednesday ahead of planned Israeli Defense Forces operations in additional sectors of the Gaza Strip, Katz issued a blunt call to civilians evacuate combat zones, oppose Hamas, and press for the release of Israeli hostages. The IDF will soon operate in force in additional areas of Gaza, and you will be required to evacuate for your protection, emphasizing that continued resistance against Hamas is necessary. The IDF will, emphasizing that continued resistance against Hamas could help end the conflict. Okay, that's huge. While pointing to recent civilian protests in the northern towns as a model for broader action. Katz singled out particular Hamas leaders for condemnation, saying that group's top commanders have been insulated from suffering while ordinary Gazans face devastation. He's right. He says they have destroyed Gaza. He said, are they ready to burn half of Gaza with his own hands? Or Mohammed, is he ready to burn half of Gaza with his own hands just to try and maintain his corrupt rule alongside his fellow Hamas murderers and rapists? He accused the group's leadership of hiding in fortified tunnels or luxurious hotels enriched by foreign accounts while using the people of Gaza as human shields. Yep, that's what they always do. Hamas murderers, he stated, are sitting safely with foreign bank accounts worth billions while civilians are being used as hostages. Absolutely, that's always what they do. The defense minister highlighted growing discontent in Gaza, pointing to rare protests that erupted Tuesday. Just as they did, Katz urged, demand the removal of Hamas from Gaza and the immediate release of all Israeli hostages. This is the only way to stop the war. His comments come as the IDF prepares to expand its pre-approved military campaign and as Gazans continue to demonstrate throughout the coastal enclave carrying white flags. Do you hear me? Not carrying whatever these Palestinian protesters here are carrying. They're carrying white flags. And they're chanting anti-Hamas slogans while calling for peace, press coverage, and the release of Israeli hostages. These scenes mark some of the largest and most open protests against the terrorist organization since the start of the war with Israel. Historically, Hamas has responded to anti-government protests with swift and often violent crackdowns. The Iran-backed terror group, which seized control of Gaza in 2007, is designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States and the European Union. These latest protests, however, signal growing desperation among ordinary Gazans, many of whom now appear willing to speak out despite the risks. As one protester questioned, how can we remain steadfast when we're dying and bleeding? The unrest in Gaza emerges amid deepening instability in the coastal enclave as Israel's efforts to dismantle Hamas leadership following October 7th massacre, the deadliest terror attack in Israel's history. Recently, Israeli forces eliminated multiple senior Hamas officials in rapid succession. That's good. Exposing fractures within the group's internal governance and forcing its operatives into survival mode. Meanwhile, President Trump's renewed vision for Gaza entailing voluntary resettlement and economic revival has gained traction, with polls showing more than half of Gazans expressing a desire to leave. As Hamas struggles to maintain control and protesters demand change from within, the stage is being set for a historic shift in the region's future. Katz's recent comments reflect Israel's evolving strategy of targeting Hamas's grip on Gaza beyond military operations, while public protests in Gaza carry significant risks under the rule of Hamas. The recent demonstrations have drawn attention from Israel officials seeking signs of grassroots unrest. With plans for further IDF activity already in motion, Katz's remarks suggest an intensifying campaign, both on the battlefield and in the battle for public sentiment within Gaza. Yeah, I mean, this is such, I mean, because, you know, Israel's not looking to kill these people. They really aren't. What the Palestinians don't realize, I understand they've lost people, okay? And this is because of Hamas. But them pushing back on Hamas is huge. And it's, the press doesn't really want to give it much coverage. They only want to give coverage when they're saying Israel, when they're protesting against Israel. But since Israel took out a couple of their biggest top commanders, the Palestinians, it's in their best interest to come out and push back against them. I think Israel would make every effort not to. They always tell them to evacuate. They do. I know that they did 25 years ago. They're not out they're not air just bombing. That's what Hamas does. That's not what Israel does. They always warn them, you know, get out of there. We are going to do this. They are always very careful. Do civilians get hurt? They do. But that's why you got to get rid of Hamas. But the Palestinians rising up is huge. It's so huge. It's a historic shift, and yet Israel's trying to tell them that, you know, where you don't have to evacuate, you know, protest, push back, because it sounds like Hamas is weakened because of some of their leadership. And I think that Israel and the United States would like to see the Palestinians actually have a prosperous land and rebuild it. It's Hamas that's the problem. And of course, these Americans that act like they care about these Palestinians, and they don't. They just care about wanting to hurt the Jews. They could care less about any of these casualties. The people that care about the Palestinians is Israel. And the United States does. But the people that truly care about the Palestinians are the people that know that Israel needs to clear that damn place out. And every time they make a peace deal, I said before, Yasser Arafat did this shit all the time. They agree to the peace deal, then Yasser Arafat and his PLO would go right back to their bullshit, like they used it as a tactic. And Hamas has been doing the same thing. The good thing is that Hamas is weakened. So the Palestinians are the key to this. If they keep staying strong and pushing back, then Israel can clear a lot of this up for you, and then you can have a whole new Palestine, one where you can live freely and not have to be under terrorist organizations. This is a rare opportunity, and I think there'll be a historical shift that will take place.